Hello, everybody. We're back here at Griffin Insiders to bring you all a debate on the 2016 election. My name is Sam Brower, and I will be the moderator for this debate. I am joined by Alexis Book, a senior communications major and a registered Democrat, and Victoria Fish, a freshman political science major and a registered Republican. For the first round, each debater has 2 minutes to speak on each question asked. We will be focusing on the issues surrounding the election. Okay, let's get started. The first question will be for you, Alexis. Who do you think is more fit to be the president?
Well, I think given experience alone, Hillary Clinton, obviously by far trumps Trump in that department. She's one of the most qualified nominees for president that we've ever had. Although her experience isn't always to, her helping with some of the scandals she's had, at the end of the day, she knows what it's like to be in the room, to be negotiating with other politicians. She knows how to interact with other countries, and foreign affairs is so important right now. And she looks and she sounds and she talks like a leader, and she's familiar with the system. I think Trump at this point, he's just not as polished as even the Republicans want him to be. He still, when he comes up and he's asked questions you can tell he didn't necessarily prepare for, he sounds awkward and he results to name calling, and he just doesn't sound professional or presidential. I think at this point it's clear that despite the scandals that Hillary Clinton's had, that her qualifications alone make her more fit to be president.
Same question for you, Victoria.
Well, I believe that when it does come down to it, Hillary Clinton does have so much more experience in the whole political world. Lexi, as you did say, she has been in the room, she has been in the negotiations, she's had so much experience in her entire career in politics. It is a hard thing to compete with. But when it does come down to Trump, while he isn't as polished, while he isn't as presidential as Clinton may appear, I do believe that Trump is more fit to be the president simply because of the change in the American, mind when it comes to this presidential election. I feel like too many people, as I said last week, are starting to shift away from the want of real politics in office because, there's this whole lack of trust and everything like that. But while Trump does lack, as I said, that presidentiality, he's not as polished as other candidates or as, presidents in the past. It just comes down to the fact that Trump is a representation of what a majority of the American people want. So I do believe that he has an advantage in that, and that he is more fit to be president.
I just think that right now what America needs is for our politicians to be, trustees, not delegates. Like, if we give the American people what they want all of the time, it could be absolute chaos, especially in times of turmoil when people don't even really know what they want. They don't know the system. Politicians do, and that's why we need to trust them to make decisions on our behalf sometimes. And I fully believe that Hillary can make the decisions that will be to the benefit of the country, even if it's not always what we want to hear sometimes.
And I can see a point in that, but at the end of the day, Trump is a businessman, and when it comes to being a businessman, you want to make the best deals. You want to be in touch with the best people and everything like that. And I do believe that Trump has something going for him in that sense. Many people, for example, doubted President Reagan when he first came up and when he started running for office. Everyone just thought he's a guy from Hollywood. What can he actually do for us? But when it comes down to it, if Trump can really surround himself with a cabinet of people that can really support his deals and do what he wants to do, he's going to try to get the best deals for this country because that's what he's done his entire life. He's always searched for the best deals. And in that sense, Trump definitely has the leg up over Hillary.
Trump is a businessman, and I'm not going to dismiss that what he does isn't good. He's made an empire for a reason. But at the same time, in the same sense, you can't go through corporate loopholes when you're running president of America, and you can't, not pay small businesses for doing work because you just don't feel like it or you don't think that their work was up to par. You have to be able to have the temperament to negotiate with other businesses as in other countries. And America doesn't run like a typical business. He does what he does well, and he should stay there.
Okay, moving on to the next question. This is for you, Victoria. What is your take on Trump saying that he might not accept the election results?
As with anyone supporting Trump, as soon as those words left his mouth, he lost so many people. When it comes down to it, when you're supporting a candidate, you're supporting them because you believe that they are the best pick. But when it comes down to saying that you're going to leave the people in suspense as to whether or not you are going to, accept the election and stuff like that, that is not what you say. Win or lose, you do have to accept the fact that you may win, you may lose. And the fact that he said that just kind of goes against that respect for office, like not even the respect for the other candidate, not even the respect for, other people in government. It's just a respect for the executive office as it is. And the fact that, Trump said this, so many people have begun to involve, when Al Gore lost to Bush. But so many people don't understand that, when Al Gore decided to go and speak out against his loss, he had justification for it. There was a seemingly small error in the electoral process. That was justified. But when it comes down to Trump saying that he's going to leave us all in suspense and he might not accept the fact that he loses, that he might not, oh my goodness, it's just awful. You should never say that, especially on live TV.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, it is one thing to question whether or not American politics and voting is fair. I think we have tons of obstacles to getting people to, the election sites, and I don't think that it's run as efficiently as it could. But to claim the entire system is rigged is kind of against the sanctity of America and challenging the integrity of our system, which is disrespectful to everyone who helps run it. And I think the real reason he's doing this is because in his mind, he's the big winner, and if he wins the election, he wins, and if he loses the election because it's rigged, he also wins, and he doesn't lose that branding that, he's Mr. Can Do It All, can win against all odds. So I think the only reason he's really saying this at this point is to try and save face, but instead of saving face, I think that he's just hurt his campaign even further.
And going off of that, it's a matter of not only does what he say hurt the people that, clearly have supported the Republicans and independents that have supported him, but even the people who are currently undecided. There may be Democrats out there who aren't satisfied with Hillary, running for office and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, not only did he lose a lot of backing from his Republican voters, but he lost a lot of voters in the independent realm, in the Democratic realm. And it's just to destroy such a, large mass of people just by saying something like that and going against the integrity of our American system. He lost so many voters.
Okay. This next question is for you, Alexis. There is a pro-life club here on campus. Why do you think that there is not a pro-choice club here on campus?
I think us being a Jesuit school has a lot to play into it. At the end of the day, we don't have a proper sex education program. We don't allow advocates from Planned Parenthood or other organizations like that to come speak to our students. We don't even allow people to protest or make counter displays against the cross display that the Pro-Life Club comes up with every year. And as a super liberal feminist myself, I don't find anything more offensive. At the end of the day, I'm not against educating people. I think if you can peacefully protest and you have actual information to present, I don't disrespect the Pro-Life Club's ability to do that. I've interacted with the president before, and I think that she's a very respectful young lady, and I have a lot of respect for her for that. But at the end of the day, to not have another club challenge their ideas and give their side of the story, it's almost a disservice to the Pro-Life Club too, because when you're the only voice and tons of students are saying, hey, we don't agree with this, but the school's not giving them an outlet to talk, it just makes everyone else look bad at that point. At the end of the day, this is a matter of health and a matter of science. And we can't just ignore that because only one of the clubs have values that align with our religion. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is just about the health of, both the fetus and the mother, and to not have a full spectrum of ideas on that just really doesn't serve anyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Despite the fact that having a pro-choice club, on campus could counter the views that people do have on campus, it's a matter of education. When it comes down to it, to only have a pro-life club, so many people are missing out on a great education when it comes down to, as you said, the science and the health behind everything that follows pregnancy. And to honestly not have a pro-choice club, in a way, it really hurts the whole campus community, because I feel like abortion is one of those things that so many people, they're ashamed or afraid to talk about, when in all honesty is one of the biggest, I hate to say issues, but it's one of the biggest topics that currently is all over society right now. And the fact that, campus doesn't have this pro-choice club, it really hurts any possible debate, any possible education, any possible further discussion on the topic. And I really just think it does the entire campus community a big disservice.
And on that same note, I think that's the problem with having kind of a PC culture at this point, is when you only talk about the viewpoints that aren't going to offend anyone and that seem to fit into your little label box. At the end of the day, you're not furthering discussion and you're doing a disservice to everybody involved. And you are right. Other countries that have outlawed abortion, all it is doing is causing masses of women to go to other countries or have unsafe abortions. It's causing people to have serious malfunctions, to even die. And it would be an absolute shame if someone who went to such a prestigious school like Canisius didn't get the right education and then, God forbid, made a decision and then made the wrong one because they just weren't informed enough about it. I mean, I'd like to think people get enough of their information online and not just from the school. But for the school to take part in that and only show one side of the story, I just think that, I mean, it's not fair to anyone involved. And Canisius is a liberal school at the end of the day. I think the majority of our student population, we're all for that social justice aspect. We've got a lot of young Democrats. Millennials tend to lean more Democrat in general. And to say, hey, your opinions don't matter because we've had these years where we only accept this viewpoint, I think just Canisius needs to step up and be a little more progressive about it.
And when it does come down to it, not only is it, you know, the people who are more liberal, but there are a lot of conservatives out there who have taken the stance of, while they may be personally against abortion, the woman has the right to privacy. You know, Roe v. Wade, you know, it is perfectly outlined there. And so even a lot of conservatives who are, you know, pro-choice and stuff like that, their viewpoints, their thoughts, everything like that can't be heard by anybody. And when your thoughts and when your opinions can't be heard, it really makes you question what can you do with them and how can you even make a difference when you aren't being heard.
Okay, this is the next question for you, Victoria. What do you think the role of the media should be in the presidential election?
Well, we are definitely in a different, you know, age. We are in the age of technology and everything like that. When it comes down to it, the media should be one of the biggest ways that people get their education in the election and stuff like that. You know, when I scroll through my Twitter feed, my Facebook feed, everything like that, I'm seeing so many articles on, you know, Trump, on Clinton. But not only are they on candidates, but they're also on the entire election process. You know, to use social media as a, you know, advancement of the whole education on government and stuff like that is such a wonderful idea. But the disservice in that is the fact that when you have this strong presence on social media, you should be using that presence for good and not for evil. You know, so many media outlet sources are just, we're just going to show this viewpoint, we're not going to talk about this one, we're going to be biased in this sense. And to kind of abuse the huge role that you have, it's a huge disservice. You know, when you have this big voice, like for example, you know, to throw this out there, Fox News, you know, when you are on live TV, when your videos show up on Facebook, when they show up on Twitter, everything like that, you should be doing everything you can to promote the news story, to promote the news topic, to just, you know, promote the election as a whole. And as soon as you start showing one side of a news story, one side of a certain subject, you are hurting your entire viewership, not in the sense that, you know, you're not giving them information, just in the fact that you're giving them this biased, closed box of information. And with that, they are not able to draw new conclusions, to, you know, get more information on different subjects. In a way, the media has shifted to this blackout type of, you know, information outlet. So many people aren't getting full educations on various subjects, and that is the biggest disservice. You know, the media is just too biased in the sense that, you know, it's going to promote one thing only. We're not going to give any other background on a story.
And I do think that, you know, at the end of the day, there is a very, like, implicit bias in the media. At the end of the, I mean, it's humans trying to write stories from a biased perspective, and at the end of the day, sometimes opinions and large influencers and who's paying them, that impacts it. I almost think of the media as like the fourth branch of government. There's a reason that we're a part of the Bill of Rights. You know, the freedom of the press is in order to help educate the constituents and, you know, keep politicians in balance by exposing them for what they do. And I think there's a certain, like, cognitive dissonance out there right now where people are, you know, if you're a Democrat, you're only watching what CNN has to say, and when you're a Republican, you're only watching what Fox has to say. And in that sense, people are doing themselves a disservice because you're not looking at both sides of the story. At the same time, obviously, the fact that we have to go out and reach two different organizations to get both sides says a lot about the media not doing its job as efficiently as it could and being as unbiased as they could be. But at the same time, I think that we need America to kind of get out of our little comfort zone and stop only following the ideas that we're comfortable hearing, and, you know, have the facts presented to us and some opinions that disagree with ours, and to kind of learn to be comfortable with that. And I think we'd all be better off if that was the case.
Definitely. And one of the most kind of startling things I've heard since I've come to campus is the fact that so many students have just completely stopped listening to American media. You know, they've stopped watching American news stations, they've stopped reading American news websites and stuff like that, and they have instead shifted to reading foreign, foreign news articles on American, issues and stuff like that, simply because in that sense, we are provided with, of course, the biggest stories that are affecting the United States as a nation as a whole, but there's no bias really presented there. It's just, okay, this is what's happening in America, this is what this person said, this is what the other person said, and that is the story. And I feel like if American media could just be more straightforward in what it's presenting and try to eliminate a lot of like the bias and just the whole kind of mystery that they're presenting, so many people would actually start watching the news again. Out of how many people that we know as millennials, how many of us even watch the news? And I feel like if we could just get rid of that bias and just give everybody a general news story, these are the facts, this is what happened, then so many people would begin to trust media again.
I do agree, and I'll have a plug as a communications major. I respect journalists a lot at the end of the day, and I think the big issue here is journalism is a dying field, and nobody in it is being paid well, so it's hard to expect them to do their jobs effectively. That's no excuse, and I totally understand why students are getting their news sources from different countries. I hear everyone say, well, I follow the BBC now because that's the only way that I can get the news that's appropriate and accurate. And I think that American politics and America's economy is doing a disservice to journalists by considering them such a low-level career. They're not respected. I mean, even to say, Trump has made it very clear many times that he hates the New York Times, he hates everyone in the media, it's all against him. When that kind of rhetoric is being displayed, why are journalists ever going to do their jobs right? Their pay sucks, the candidates don't like them, everyone doesn't trust them. It's disrespectful at the end of the day, and I think that the media being at the place that it's in is going to affect the American political system for a number of years now, and until we can change that system, I think the way that we perceive politics and the way that politics are handled isn't going down the right path.
All right, thank you, ladies. We will be now moving on to our quick fire round. In this section, each question can be discussed for a maximum of 30 seconds. This first question is for you, Alexis. Do you think global warming is a big problem that our country faces?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that not only affects our generation, but that is going to affect every generation after us. Our ozone is depleting, animals are dying, sea levels are rising. I just don't see any excuse not to move forward in having greener alternatives for energy.
I can definitely agree with that. Instead of just kind of getting the word out there about global warming, we should be seeking green alternatives, especially in our businesses and our factories. If we can promote and implement green energy and greener alternatives, we are going to see such a turnaround in this country when it comes to the survival of our ecosystems and everything like that.
All right, we got to move on to the next question. Do you believe that Hillary wants open borders for our country, and how do you think that will affect American safety?
Well, with what Hillary said last night, the whole open borders, everything like that, it is a complete terror in my mind. A matter of, with her just letting anybody come into this country, everything like that, we don't know what drug issues, what weapons, what other problems are going to come into our country with them. And like Trump said, you do not have a country if you do not have a strong border.
I mean, I agree that there should be some sort of border, and I think Hillary also agrees that there needs to be some level of cutting people off, and there needs to be some sort of system to that. I think she believes in immigration reform. She's not letting any criminal in here, but I think it's wrong to assume that everyone who's coming into our country is a criminal in the first place. A lot of people are just coming here because they admire our country, and I think America's based on immigration.
And that is understandable, but on the other hand, when you had, almost 100 years ago, when you had all of those people, come to New York City from, all of these foreign countries, they did it the right way. They wanted to make a better life for themselves and a better life for their future generations, so they waited in line. They became permanent American citizens.
But no, that takes like 7 years to do in the first place.
Okay, but so many people are just overlooking that process. And all of these people, we need to bring them out of the shadows and everything like that. At the end of the day, if you are not in this country legally, but you want to create a better life for your kids, you're doing the complete opposite.
All right, next question. That went a little over 30 seconds. All right, during the debate, Donald Trump dismissed the sexual assault allegations against him as a phony and made up by the Clinton campaign. Do you think that these allegations hold any merit, and do you believe that they affect Trump's ability to lead the country? Alex?
I'm not going to say that all of the allegations are true. I don't know. Obviously, that's something for a court system to handle. But at the end of the day, the fact that Trump has made it very clear that he's sexist, that he doesn't respect women. So do I think that any of these allegations have some sort of basis? Absolutely. He's made jokes about walking in on American Beauty, contestant pageants while they're getting dressed. His crude and disgusting comment he made about grabbing women's genitalia. I think that it is possible that he has sexually assaulted people before, and obviously that affects his ability to lead the country because he's disrespecting 50% of our population, and I can't imagine having a daughter and being like, that's our president right now. He's openly advocated for sexual assault. When
it comes down to it, as Alexis said, it's not, there's no way to tell if all of these women who are coming forward are telling the truth or not, and that's very unfortunate. The fact that we could have people coming up and lying just to get their 10 minutes of fame. But when it does come down to it, does it hurt the chances of Trump getting elected? Yes. But it will. I don't believe it can affect his ability to govern. Will it affect the way people look at him in the presidency? Of course. But when it comes down to it, a lot of this stuff is statements that were, on weird video over 10 years ago. And I am almost certain Hillary Clinton has almost worse skeletons in her closet. Like the fact that she got her husband off for all of the sexual allegations that were presented on him. When it comes down to it, I feel like Trump is just more in the media light for his wrongdoing and stuff like that than Clinton is.
All right. Recently, it has been shown that the DNC had tried to bait Trump supporters by sending people to his rallies wearing controversial t-shirts such as "Trump is a Nazi." What do you have to say about that?
I hate to say it, doing an action like that, it really just affects, the whole election cycle and everything like that. And it is a shame, but it's politics. When it comes down to it, if you can influence, the way the people who are supporting your opponent are thinking and sway the way they might vote, of course you are going to try to do it. Is it kind of shameful in the fact that they're, in a way, promoting violence and, actually hurting people? Of course. But when it comes down to it, it's the game of politics, and Trump should have been expecting it from the get-go.
Right, and honestly, if Trump supporters are that easily ignited by people wearing t-shirts and causing these fights in the first place, obviously the DNC had a reason to do it if they thought that's what was going to happen, and it did. Do I think black hat politics is right and doing things like this is efficient? Absolutely not, but at the end of the day, it's on his supporters on how they react, and if that's how they reacted, I mean, the DNC can't be blamed for that.
But when it comes down to it, it's not how Trump as a candidate is reacting, it is how the people who support him are reacting, and he can't control the way that they react. Of course.
But he has incited violence at his rallies before.
But to be, kind of claiming that you're the better candidate and you're above the violence, you want to stop the violence, but then to go and, incite the violence at your opponent's rally, that defeats the purpose of anything.
That is true.
Okay, last question. Second to last question. How can you defend Hillary's lack of transparency with her constituents?
I can't.
There's no way. You can't defend it. No way.
At the end of the day, I still think that she's the more qualified candidate, but she hasn't been transparent. I think she's got a lot of trust building to do. If she gets elected, it's going to be a lot more trying to build up her reputation again for the first couple months than it is actual politics, and that's going to set us back, which is an absolute shame. But I think she's capable of doing that, and I think when she's actually in the White House and she proves, that her qualifications make her a worthwhile president, then people might start to forget about it. But I mean, her lack of transparency is a problem.
I can definitely agree with that. There was a point where Lexi and I were talking, and we said that, we could understand maybe when you're in the beginning stages of forming public policy, you do want to keep that, on a smaller level. You don't really want to talk it out with everybody because you don't want to hurt the chances of it being implemented, of it being passed. But to be called two-faced when you're on live TV, that should just be the biggest, I hate to phrase it like this, but slap to the face. It's to have a candidate that so many people just don't trust. When people spell her name, they've been putting liar in her name. How can you even try to support a candidate like that?
Okay, last question. After the election, if Trump loses, do you think he will create a TV network? And if so, how do you think that will affect American politics and journalism in the country?
If that happens, we are going to see such a huge shift in everything. It is no longer going to be we're not going to talk about this because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Everything is going to be out there. Nobody is going to hold anything back. It's not going to be about speaking with a form of political correctness. It's going to be, this is what's on my mind. This is the facts that support this, and there it is.
But I think at the same time, I mean, I can't imagine a lot of what Trump says isn't based in fact. It's about igniting emotion and, typical Republican values, which I understand as the Republican candidate. But to have journalists talking in this sense, I mean, a lot of it's just so bold, so offensive sometimes, so rooted in fear that how can you speak about this on terms of being an actual professional journalist and not being unbiased? I mean, our problem with the media is that we have problems with bias. Trump TV, that's all I could imagine it being.
Mm-hmm. When it comes down to it, whether or not it actually happens, we are going to see an explosion in everything that the media once stood for.
But I don't think that that's going to be a good thing. I think completely restructuring the media based off of what Trump wants journalism to be, that might be a problem.
But to say that the entire media is going to be restructured is, you honestly can't say that, because at the end of the day, like I've said, in the past, what draws so many people to Trump is the fact that he's saying what is on our minds. And I think that, if Trump does have a bigger, kind of influence in the media, I think that'll bring a lot of people forward and have them actually start saying what they're thinking, rather than, sitting down and keeping their opinions on the down low, keeping them to themselves, because they're afraid of being, attacked by somebody else who doesn't share their same opinion.
I still at the same time feel like that Trump is the message and the messenger at the same point. Like, Trump is his own brand. He carries the message with him well. He's charismatic in a very strange way that appeals to a lot of, Americans. But to have any old Joe Schmo talk about the same Trump ideology, there's a reason that, like, senators who have similar ideas as Trump aren't being elected. It's because they're not Trump. Like, he carries his message better than anyone else could. So unless he was hosting and running every single TV show, I just don't see it being as effective as, other Republicans might think that it would be.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Griffin Insiders. Do you want your political position heard? Contact us today.